Okay, well, hi everybody. Welcome to another series of Leading from Home. And now we're opening up to the other side of the fence. We're going to lead from home from managing teams, managing virtual teams, which we're joined today by Madeleine from Nordea Bank, another Nordic bank, who is going to share us some of her live experiences from the last month of being locked down, and from her perspective as a manager, also from a mum, a wife, and also some of the experiences and challenges from the employees that she's been managing. So Madeleine, welcome to Leading from Home.
Thank you so much. It's a true pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sean.
And just to, before we begin, just want to give a sort of a short background of who you are in terms of your position at Nordea and how many people you have to manage in your part of Nordea.
Absolutely. My name is Madeleine and I come from Nordea Bank. Nordea Bank is one of the top 10 biggest banks in the world. But I think what's interesting here is that Nordea is a Nordic bank, which means that the organization we have spans across the Nordic countries. That means in terms that my organization has team members all across the Nordic countries. And I think what has been interesting here is that all the meetings we normally have always have a Skype link in them. So I will come back to that a little bit later when talking about leading virtual teams. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here. It's a highly relevant topic, how to lead virtual teams when not being in the same room. How can you be present but not in the same room? How can you do it differently? Because obviously you can't lead in the same way as you would do in an office. So good to be here.
Cool, and this is where I suppose, Phil, we're putting our advice to practice, because we spent the last two episodes, Phil, giving advice about how people should interact and engage as an employee, and how managers should support their staff, and to how to not sort of harass them. But now we're going to hear the live experiences from Madeleine. So Phil, we can sort of put everything to the test. And I suppose firstly, Madeleine, how are you finding things? It's been 4 weeks. Is it difficult? Is it things improving with managing from virtual teams? How are you managing home with I see in the background Easter's coming up. You've got plenty of kids writing your pictures. How are things from the home life, which is now your office, and there's also like other things at kindergarten and school?
I think honestly, it's a lot of questions there in one question. But to be honest with you, I kind of hoped that this would be over, as we all did, faster than it actually is, and it has been 4 weeks now. I have kind of, from the beginning, I thought I was going to be back in the office quite soon. Now I realize it will take a while. So I started to make my own corner back home. So as you can see, I have a lot of nice paintings here on the walls for my kids. I actually went to buy myself a more comfortable chair to sit in. Just those small things. I think when you are at the office, it's your office space, and then you're going to have to create some kind of corner in your home to have as your space here. And I realized that one of the tough things, and I think Phil actually mentioned that in an earlier vlog of yours, was the importance of actually having this corner. And I never realized it myself until actually a week or 2 weeks ago, when I find myself usually sit on the sofa in the evening to work when the kids have gone to bed. But then I kind of realized that I'm never done. Since I'm at home working all the time, I have a feeling that I'm always at work. So I need to have this corner. Sounds so basic, but I needed to have this corner to sit here and to work in the evenings, and then could close down the computer, go down to the sofa and just watch the news or something before I went to bed. So that's one of my insights also. And I think one of the other insights is that, yes, we are quite used to in Nordea to work virtually with the teams we have already. But in a lockdown like this, it changes things. And it changes the way that you need to think about your presence. So, for example, the team meetings that I've usually we've had one-day team meetings, people travel in and so on. I stopped that. So instead I cut them shorter pieces and tighten them up to have them more frequent. And the same thing with one-to-ones. It's not the purpose is not to control what people are doing, but rather give my team members an opportunity to have airtime with me, and also to just to see, hi, how are you? Do those kind of things much more frequent, and to tighten up, to have shorter intervals. And I think, I mean, the concentration span virtual or on a Skype meeting isn't too long. I mean, after 45 minutes, you want to stand up and you need to have a coffee break. Just acknowledge that, have a coffee break, let people do that, and then come back and continue. So I think that has been one of my key learnings, and what we talked a lot about in my team has been that we're doing this now. We're open to change. We might change this format along the way, but it will also be interesting to see when this is over, how we will change the way that we meet in the future. Because I'm sure that some of these habits we will continue with. Some of the virtual coffee corners we will still have. So that's a lot of learnings and a lot of insights that I'm very curious to see what happens in the future.
And how have you managed, or how have things changed the home in terms of, your home has now become your home and office? How has the impact been on your kids and your husband? And before you used to, as I say, come home and just working on a laptop if you had to work from home, but now you say you're managing employees and talking to them, every hour, 2 hours. How has the impact been for you in terms of having your home sort of not being invaded, but intrusive in terms of having your office full time now, 4 weeks? What's the impact on your family?
I can share with you a challenge I had this morning, honestly, on that. I have my 2-year-old at home today, and I had a morning video meeting, and I thought it was fine to do that while he was playing around in the background. And I think, he is sort of the new office noise, right? So we have office noise, the real office, and then we have other noise that the children are playing in the background as the new sort of home office noise, and that's fine. Although he was not fine with it, so he tried to pull my new chair away with me on top of it, of course, then, because it rolls away quite easily. So when he didn't succeed with that, he disappeared, and I started to sense, okay, so this is not good. And then the internet connection worked, so he pulled the Wi-Fi. Very clever for a 2-year-old. Not good in the video meeting. So I mean, and that so that's one of the challenges I've been facing. I think on a more serious note, for me, it has been important to show also that it's fine to, you can see that I have a sweater on. Usually at the office, I'm wearing a suit. I'm wearing a shirt and so on. I don't do that at home, and I think that shows a more personal side. You can engage on a personal level. Fine. But what I'm very and even though it's messing the background, who cares really? But I think one of the key things, and that's important, is always to keep your camera on. Before this session that I was invited to you guys here, I had a talk in my team and asked them, okay, so what is the joint experiences? What is the do's and don'ts here? And what do you think? And every one of them said, well, it's key to have the camera on, because that's a presence, and also to know, I mean, what are you seeing in the camera? So I know that some colleagues of mine have had an entire conversation with a lady in the wrong height, like she's been up here, and then you don't really know what you're looking at. And a friend of mine, he had a one-to-one, and then he needed to pick up his phone because it was ringing. He stood up and he just had his boxers on, so that wasn't so good either. So I think that's it kind of goes into the do's and don'ts, more of the don'ts. So challenges, but we're all human, right? And I think be kind to one another and be kind to yourself, because it's happening all over the world, and with the same boat, every one of us. And I think the important thing here is just to be kind and to acknowledge that this is a new situation. We can't deliver the same way as we did in the office, but we can deliver in new ways. We can find innovative ways, and we can do it differently. I mean, the one-to-ones that I have now, sometimes I do them walk and talk because it's nice weather outside. So why don't we just shut down the computer and take a walk and just talk about how's life? How's it
Yeah.
going for you? How's your stakeholders doing? What's happening on your end? You don't always need to do that in front of your computer. And I think, I mean, we need to find these little pearls here,
Yeah.
because it's not all bad, the situation we're in. We need to find the good stuff as well. So what what can we do differently, and what is good? Well, it's nice weather outside. Let's enjoy that. Take a longer walk on the lunch, on your lunch break. Enjoy the sun, enjoy the light. For those of you who can, obviously not everyone are allowed to go out, but
Yeah.
in Sweden at least we are. So just take advantage of that.
Exactly. And Phil, I suppose we talked about stress, and just hearing from Madeleine here, the stress of having the tug of war between the family wanting her attention and the employees, and then the employees feeling that camped to the computer. What's your reflections upon what Madeleine's been talking about, from being sort of the piece between the sandwich, and also giving her team different freedoms, and also mixing things up? Like, how important are these type of things to try different things rather than having that same approach for every time we manage an employee?
Okay, well, Madeleine, lovely to meet you. And I've got to say that if every manager that I've talked to in the last 4 weeks had such a proactive approach as yourself, I think there would probably be far fewer challenges of leading remotely than I experienced. You're demonstrating some super behaviors. I think empathy is one of the qualities that we talk about a lot for successful remote managers, and it's quite clear that you understand the empathy and have empathy for the needs of the people that you're working with. I think that just that little reflection there about you don't have to be in the office the whole time, you can get out, but recognizing that actually that might not be an option for some of your colleagues. And so being cognizant of the fact that actually, although it seemed like a nice idea, if they can't get out, it's probably better that you don't get out, and actually you share that same discomfort with them at the same time. I think one of the other points that you made really nicely was about attention span. We are in a new world. It's a new world where you're dialing into a meeting and your team are dialing into a meeting all from your home environment. That's the key difference for this remote working than before, when you had been in your office, they had been in their office, and even if you were communicating remotely, you were both from an office environment. It's a completely different situation, and being aware of that, and the concentration spans being necessarily a lot shorter now, and just working with the new reality. I think the third thing that I hear, which is again great practice, is it's lovely to see that you've created that space that is now your working space. And one of the reasons why in this broadcast that I've decided to take my virtual background away so that you can see my real workspace is to kind of share with you some of those best practices. You've touched on one already. We're going to be home probably for a few more weeks. Invest in a good chair. But spend as much money as you can on the best chair you can afford, because you're spending a lot of time on it, and the difference between a poor chair and a good chair is a good back or a bad back. The second thing is very practical things like, where's the light? So I'm going to, hopefully this is going to not cause too much nausea, but you can see there is one of my windows. So it's 90 degrees to my face, so you can see it. The other one is actually immediately in front of me. There it is. And what it enables me to do is to actually be bathed with a lot of natural light, which is fantastic for my well-being, but also very practically for you. It makes it very easy for people to see who you are when you're on the call. Not having that big window immediately behind you, which then just casts your face into shadow, and frankly, you could be anybody there. So that's an easy tip to encourage other people to do, as well as not wearing their boxer shorts and all of those other things.
Yeah,
So.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I actually had a video meeting with, it was a virtual training, and then one of the participants, she was in a very dark space. So eventually I had to ask her, so where are you really? And she's like, no, I'm in the closet. Like, why are you in the closet? No, because it's the only place where I actually can stand up and have my computer in a good space. Like, okay, great, good for you.
Brilliant story. And I mean, but of course it very quickly reminds us that, you know, for many people, they don't have the luxury of a lot of choice of where they locate themselves. But like you said right at the beginning of this broadcast, you know, wherever that space is, make it yours. And if you can have the luxury of the light at the side or light at the front, then when you use the video, which is such an important behavior, use the video at all times. You can see the body language, you can see the facial expressions, and through that continue to build the trust, which is such an important part of getting things done.
And speaking of which, Phil, like, you know, the more tips there, which are really important. I think some employees, and Madeleine, I suppose if you've got any experiences here, share the feedback. But like if you're talking to me and I'm sort of, you know, thinking, oh, you can't see me, I'm looking at the window and looking elsewhere, like, you know, subconsciously, you know, the other side of the screen's looking at, are you paying attention? Are you looking at, you know, are you engaged? And just because you're not in the office, these small things make a big thing. Or Madeleine, how do you find if, you know, are your employees engaged, or like now they're at home, are they looking at, you know, looking around the whole time, or are they looking at you? What's the feedback in terms of, you know, their level of engagement and how important it is to look at the camera, as hard as it may be, or giving coaching? How do you cope with that engagement factor?
That's a really good question, Sean. I think one of the key factors here are exactly to say, just to have the video on, just have it. It's a huge difference, I think, to just talk to a black screen, basically. And it's, to your point, it's hard to have the conversation, because the conversation you're having, even if the person isn't saying anything, the face is saying a lot of things.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to interpret that in order to have a giving conversation. So whenever you give the feedback, I mean, it won't be a good feedback session for anyone if you can't have a mutual conversation, regardless if the other person is being quiet or not.
I feel like you talk about empathy before, and now with the camera being so important, if Madeleine was my manager and she goes, hey, feeling us, if I was, you know, in the camera, like, yeah, you know, you're really good, you know, in this, you know, that, like giving an answer because I feel I have to as a manager, but then in my face going, you know, really sad, that level of engagement or empathy, rather than going, oh, okay, good, but then picking up saying, well, are you really okay? Are you really struggling here? How is you know, coming back to your coaching, how important is that, what do you call it, emotional or recognition, the emotional side of somebody, or picking up those small things that they haven't either been taught, or how do they pick up people's personal side of things that they haven't done before?
I want to bring in one particular factor, which I think is regional and cultural here, and that's the importance of silence in communication. We know that particularly in the Nordic region, you know, people like to think before they speak. People don't say so much. They say very good things, but they often need the time to think about what it is they need to say. Now, when you're on a video, you can see what people are thinking, and you can work with the silence. You can actually embrace the silence. And I've been on coaching calls with people, Nordic colleagues, where we've had several seconds of silence, which on a phone call would have just been impossible, but on a video call is completely natural. And it's just, you know, watching how people are reacting to what you're saying, taking that factor on board. Are they engaged? Are they distracted? And, you know, and taking Madeleine's very first point, I mean, the children in the background is our new norm. And, you know, you would have to be completely robotic not to have some empathy for someone who is trying to juggle being a brilliant manager and being a mum or dad at the same time. But, you know, that's, if you like, the acceptable distraction. You know, an email popping up or a phone going off when you're deep in a one-to-one conversation wouldn't have been acceptable if we were face to face, wouldn't have been acceptable if we were in two offices, and certainly isn't acceptable now that we're both working from home offices.
Yeah. I see we're almost out of time, and we'll do part 2 of this because we haven't covered half of the questions which I'd like to cover with both of you. So, and I suppose it just covers here, Phil, like, you know, you are a coach, and people think, oh, what do I need coaching to be, you know, virtual management or coaching my team from home. But just in those, you know, 3 topics we've covered here with Madeleine, that these are some very difficult issues of, you know, being emotionally engaged, covering stress, coaching employees, you know, just looking at the camera and these type of things, let alone the productivity, which I wanted to cover, coping strategies. So we'll cover these in part 2, but just while we're touching these issues from other managers who are facing similar things with Madeleine, how can people reach you, Phil, if they want to get any support or coaching from you in between these coaching sessions that we have on the vlog? What's something which you can offer, or people can reach out for more information each week between the sessions?
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for reminding me. I do the worst job of promoting what I do, but it's good that you remind me. So you can contact me on Twitter, Phil Stockbridge, LinkedIn, and those are the easiest professional connections to make it happen. And I look forward very much to hearing from people. Any questions or issues that they have, send them through you and send them through the channel here. Certainly, I look forward to our part 2. Madeleine, you know, it's been a delight to hear some of your challenges. I look forward to working with you on part 2, and we'll discuss a few more of those too.
Likewise.
Excellent. And yeah, people use the comment section if some of these areas resonate with you, or you got questions for both Madeleine and Phil, or just sharing, you know, this your true, you know, your true side of things in terms of, yeah, this is difficult, as Madeleine says, and Madeleine, you're saying that we are all people, and that's where I think taking our hat off in terms of the manager, the employee. End of the day, we are people, and I say these are difficult times. So to be flexible, to be engaged, and I really like to keep coming back to the word empathy, Phil, because I think every single week this gets more difficult. It's uncertain, and empathy in terms of, you know, asking how are you coping, how are you feeling, small things, but make a big difference from both. You know, end of the day, that take the hierarchy aside and different roles, that we are people that need to be supported and learn from it. So I think this has been really valuable for I think for many people out there who listen to your stories, Madeleine, because we've talked about with Phil, like, you know, the what to do, but you've shown us, you know, what is happening, and, you know, pulling out Wi-Fi cords and the frustration of like, yeah, the people are suffering from kids not getting the attention, and employees, you know, not seeing the manager face to face. So this is difficult. So yeah, people, please put your comments and reach out to Phil if you want more confidential support or advice. And on a positive note, Easter time. What are you guys doing for Easter? What's Madeleine? You got your Easter eggs trees in the background. What do you got planned for Easter with the family, and treasure hunts or Easter hunts? And
yeah, treasure hunt, Easter. Above all, I would say eat a lot of Easter sweets. And that's, I think that could be for a future session, but how to not start eating the Easter candy beforehand when working from home. That's kind of a main challenge right now. So lots of candy.
And I suppose don't talk, and then wipe your mouth before you talk to your manager after eating chocolate. Be nothing worse having chocolate all over your mouth before you have a one-to-one.
Probably
what's on the cards over there in the UK for Easter? What do you got planned?
Well, thanks for asking. With the lockdown that we've got here, I think my wife and I are going to go exploring one of the spare rooms, and that's probably about the level of the travel. The garden if the sun's shining, the spare room if it's raining. Fantastic.
Well, I've got, being Australian, I've got a nice leg of lamb ready to be barbecued on some coal on Sunday, and for the kids, hide some Easter eggs on their little mountain outside where they can. I like to make it tougher for them each year, so I'm going to be super tough and camouflage their eggs under some rocks and some dirt, so they spend half an hour of trying to find these eggs. So bit of outdoor activity for them, and but I think most important, having that family time, as Madeleine says, that we're so busy with trying to cope with our work and managing this virtual teams, and I think it's important now to sort of give that time back to 100% devotion to our family and to our homes, who have now had to share with the officers. So hope everybody can do the same and try and cope with what they have, and try and enjoy some downtime during these really difficult past few months. Well, Madeleine, Phil, thank you very much for today, and Madeleine, especially thanks for sharing. Speaking of the Easter Bunny has come to town, but he's turned black instead of white.
That's it. So happy Easter from me. Happy Easter from me and from Megan here. This is my old dog.
Happy Easter, Megan. And how old's Megan, Phil?
She's 13 years old.
Oh, fantastic! I can just see his eyes and the black cuddly fur. Fantastic. Well,
thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward
sharing. Madeleine's really grateful for sharing those experiences. So yeah, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you part 2 on the other side of Easter for continuing this managing virtual team. So thanks both, and speak to you next week. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Thank you.